the most famous paintings by Pierre-Auguste Renoir. In this video, we will see the most famous works of Renoir, the French artist of the Impressionist movement, most famous in the entire history of art. Dance at the Moulin de la Galette. Artwork by Pierre-Auguste Renoir from the year 1876. If internet video tutorials had already existed in the second half of the 19th century, the dance at the Moulin de la Galette would have served Pierre-Auguste Renoir to rub shoulders with the most visualized on how to make an Impressionist painting. From the work in question, which was one of the main attractions of the Third Impressionist exhibition, held in 1877 in Paris, the ideas of this pictorial movement flow and, in particular, the way Renoir had of interpreting his techniques and concepts. Renoir was the Impressionist of the human figure. Faced with the predilection for the landscape, both urban and natural, that marked this artistic group, Renoir put a face to Impressionism by placing people at the center of his compositions. Exposed, protagonists, alive. And for those who want broth, here are 2 cups, because, in this work, the artist shows us a whole crowd submerged in the enjoyment and jovial escape of a warm spring afternoon. As a good Impressionist, Renoir captured one of the balls that were frequently held at the Moulin de la Galette, located in the Parisian district of Montmartre. The former mill, which was also portrayed by other artists such as Van Gogh, had, after an extensive renovation, a restaurant, a dance hall and a picnic area outside. Due to its rapid popularity, it became established as a meeting and celebration place for the lower middle class, who after a long working week would indulge in music, dancing, drinking or flirting here. Almost in a photographic frame, whose edges cut elements of the composition, Renoir captures in this canvas the new conception of leisure that emerged in the 19th century. We are witnessing a change in the way of understanding social interactions, consumption and fun on a daily basis. All this portrayed in a masterclass of Impressionism that brings together the elevation of perspective, the dissolution of contours, and the looseness of the brushstroke. And how could it be otherwise? We witness a vigorous play of light and reflections that penetrates the scene and bathes it in the vital joy of the artist from Limoges. Portrait of Victor Chokett. Artwork by Pierre-Auguste Renoir from the year 1876. Victor Chokett was an official of the French Ministry of Finance who had a passion, an obsession, a vice: he collected art. Above all, he was crazy about the Impressionists and was among the first to defend them when the Parisians jeered at them and booed their pictorial gibberish for not understanding what was shown there. Chokett had a good eye, no doubt. And so, while the others laughed, he built up an ever-growing collection of Impressionist painters, particularly acquiring the works of his favorite, Cézanne. The post-Impressionist would paint and draw it on countless occasions. But his collection also abounded with works by Monet, Pissarro and Renoir, who is the painter who portrayed him in the image you see. Many of these artists chose to reward his support by painting him, and Renoir shows his sympathy for the patron by immortalizing him brushstroke by brushstroke with that twinkle in his eyes, casual clothing, hands joined, and, of course, a work of art on the back. But it is a very concrete work, a Delacroix that Chokett had acquired years ago and that Renoir placed there because the collector had once told him that he was the heir to the Romantic painter's approach to color. In Summer. Artwork by Pierre-Auguste Renoir from the year 1868. Lise Trehot was Renoir's mistress and posed in many of his paintings from this period. Unseemly because Lise has messy hair, a very light shirt, and that lost look in the middle of that summer humidity. A lady in 1868 had to show herself full length, impeccably dressed and above all, with some reason such as holding a parasol. Lise however is simply there, in that torrid summer. An earring in her ear serves as a bit of an excuse for this painting to also be known as the Gypsy. But the important thing about this painting is that background. It is absolutely wonderful how Renoir creates with just a few strokes not only the nature of the background, but also suggests a whole summer. While the 20-year-old model is portrayed in an almost photographic manner, that background is a pure and wonderful chromatic chaos that fills the entire scene with light. We are, it must be remembered, 4 years before the official arrival of Impressionism, and Renoir was already painting outside, with loose brushstrokes and modern themes as simply his lover on a summer afternoon. Julie Monet and a Cat. Artwork by Pierre-Auguste Renoir from the year 1887. The marriage of Berthe Morisot and Eugene Monet, brother of Edouard Monet, develops a strong friendship with Renoir in the 80s, as well as a great admiration for his talent. Therefore, it is not surprising that they decide to commission the painter a portrait of his daughter Julie. Julie always remembered those sessions in which she posed for Renoir, a very calm process, little by little, step by step, area by area, which is something that was not typical of the artist. The finish is too finished for a Renoir in full development of his maturity. The result is this exquisite painting that exudes happiness and charm. Young Julie looks at us with eyes full of life, and on her lap is this very comfortable cat, which seems ecstatic with pleasure in the girl's arms. It is evident that the pussycat got along very well with the girl, and that Renoir knew these animals, especially when they are seen happy. Renoir still had many more paintings to paint, some of which have a feline. We even know that in his last years he used to paint with a cat on his knees, perhaps to keep him warm. In fact, some cat hair mixed in the paint made it possible to authenticate some canvases by the master that were not signed. Renoir was the one who said, "Art must be beautiful." Yes, pretty. There are some pretty nasty things in the world, why create others? The Mosque. Artwork by Pierre-Auguste Renoir from the year 1881. The works that Pierre-Auguste Renoir produced during his 2 stays in Algeria live in the shadow of his most famous paintings, but, as has been demonstrated on so many other occasions, they are not of residual interest. Following in the footsteps of Eugene Delacroix, one of his artistic references, the painter from Limoges packed his bags and, brush in hand, heeded the tempting call of exoticism from the east and landed in the Algerian capital for the first time in 1881. Given the colonialist expansions of states such as France itself during the 19th century, travel to territories beyond the continent became increasingly affordable for European tourism. The city of Algiers had established itself as one of the preferred destinations due to its relative proximity and the amenities it offered, with cafes, streets and arcades in the purest Parisian style. In case the idea of going through the alleys and stairs of the Kasbah was not finally as seductive as from the distance of the metropolis. Likewise, the French administration publicized the trip to the colonies through prints and postcards that even served Renoir as a source of inspiration for the composition of some other painting. When leaving, in addition to the interest in discovering that world that was sold as so mysterious, Renoir carried the pictorial language of Impressionism in his suitcase. He was not the first artist to use the concepts of this movement in the Eastern cultural context, but as Mosque shows, he was surely one of the most ambitious. It is not clear what celebration we witness here, because if there is something that characterizes this work, it is its lack of specification, the distance to the event, unidentifiable faces in a diffuse crowd, local architecture without detail. Everything seems wrapped in an aura of allegories of culture and of Oriental folklore that contrasts with the closeness of his representations of similar themes in the life of Paris, as can be seen, for example, in the ball at the Moulin de la Galette. On the other hand, Renoir's African works stand out for their treatment of color, which further enhances the general impression of vagueness. The scene is daubed in the warmth of the Mediterranean light, accurately interpreted through a palette dominated by yellow and ochre tones. And there is white. Renoir, as he himself says, discovers white in North African architecture. In short, Renoir portrays in Algeria what it seems he went to see. In search of what is different, he stuck to the clichés of Oriental exoticism, deeply rooted in the European culture of the time. For this reason, although in terms of artistic value his paintings are captivating, their adjustment to the reality of the time and the perspective they present must be questioned. Luncheon of the Boating Party. Artwork by Pierre-Auguste Renoir from the year 1881. Renoir, the most hedonistic impressionist. For him the important thing was to show the joy of living. While others in the group showed the different effects of light on a tree, what Auguste wanted was the effects of light on life. This box is an icon. The Rower's Lunch shows us the terrace of the Maison Fournaise, on the banks of the Seine, a place that never slept, where boats were rented for a romantic stroll through Paris and exquisite meals of the best French cuisine were served during the day, and dances were organized until dawn at night. It is logical that a guy who loves life like Renoir would spend hours and hours there and decided to capture it on canvas, with his vibrant and trembling style, full of vitality. Renoir portrays his friends as the painter Caillebotte, sitting in the foreground, and in front of him, playing with a puppy, his favorite model of that time, the red-headed Aline Cherigot, with her funny nose, who would end up being his wife shortly after. What a light in this painting! It gives the impression that it could be seen in the dark. A light filtered by the striped awning that illuminates the revelry of the characters and that magnificent still life on the table, which is almost the protagonist of the painting. An exquisite and nutritious breakfast to take advantage of the sunny day that lies ahead for these people with strength and vitality. The Granera. Artwork by Pierre-Auguste Renoir from the year 1869. A dreamlike landscape, brushstrokes that give life to rays of light, water as a mirror and green leaves reflected in it. One can almost breathe the summer in Renoir's work. The crowd predicts laughter and a day that seems to happen in another world. La Granera was a kind of spa frequented by Renoir and Monet. They spend the day together and compete to portray the same setting to see which of them can more quickly capture the impression of the situation. Renoir's brush strokes are short and appear in different lighting to simulate the reflection in the water. One could say without a doubt that it is a day between competitive friends while they feed on the happiness of their models. However, what secret is Renoir hiding? The famous painter suffered from severe rheumatoid arthritis, which affected his knees, feet and, above all, hands. It was spreading to such a degree that he could not hold the brushes correctly. However, this did not stop the painter. On the contrary, he shared his philosophy of life when he was encouraged to put down the brush when he saw the pain caused by the effort. The pain passes, but the beauty remains. Renoir leaves this work of art as a testimony to his philosophy and reminds us that technique is not what differentiates his work from Monet's, but his way of seeing things, his impression. Seeing beauty in everyday life, overcoming beauty over pain. It is a lesson that one should learn to apply in their day-to-day life. That was all for today's video. Tell us what you thought, and if you liked it, please give us your subscription and your like. This way you support the art community on YouTube. Until the next video, have a nice day.